What's the most NSFW experience you witnessed right in front of your eyes? Before we go to the first story, please hit the subscribe and ring the notification bell to stay updated with us. Number 20. Driving home in a snowstorm and a BMW passes me like I'm parked. They get about a mile ahead of me and I see the tail lights swerving, then I see headlights tail lights as the car spins round and round. Then it starts rolling. I hit my hazards and come to a stop. I get up to the car and it's empty. I look and about 50 feet is someone on the ground. I get up to her. She is on her back and her neck is clearly broken, at a very unnatural position, but her waist is twisted 180 degrees and her toes facing down. She'd obviously dead. A man ran up and tried to convince me that we needed to start CPR. Two others had to explain to him it was too late. Every time I drive through there, I see her face. Number 19. Walked in on two coworkers having an affair. He later cornered me and threatened me. She is my brother-in-law's best friend's wife, and I've known him a lot longer than she has. I reported it, mainly the threat, to HR and talked to my sister about it to see if she and her husband wanted to talk to him about it. I got written up by the VP and the conduct team of where I worked because I told my sister about it. Allegedly, I put the woman at risk because, and I quote conduct, her husband is most likely going to beat her over this. I've known him for over 30 years. He doesn't have a violent bone in his body, and if he showed any signs, he wouldn't still be good friends with my sister and her husband. A few years later, did he ever beat her? Nope. Did they go to counseling? Yes. Number 18. It was the Friday evening of Jazz Fest in New Orleans. I remember it was Friday because so had work and tickets to go on Saturday. I head down the corner bar, which is across town from the fest. Within minutes after I get there, this randy, sunburned couple becoming hooked at the mouth. Just tongue blasting each other's face whole. They peel off long enough to order a drink and head to an open table that's under the dartboard. The four guys actively playing were like, "Don't sit there," but they shrugged it off and say anyway. The guys kind of looked at each other and kept throwing darts. My thought was that would encourage them to move. They didn't. The guy makes a move and starts fingering the woman and the bartender yells at them to take it outside. The woman finally stands up after being asked several times to knock it off. Just as she's standing, one of the guys throws his dart and hit her right in the ear hole. It was sticking out of the side of her head like a prop. She screams this pain-shocked, wild scream and runs outside. The bartender called the paramedics, but the couple was gone by the time they arrived. Wear earplugs at Jazz Fest. Number 17. I used to manage a small family-owned retail store. It was the 4th of July and the owners, of course, took the day off and dropped the responsibility on me. We had two stock boys bringing up some items on the forklift when I hear banshee scream coming from outside the storefront. One of them comes flying through the front door on one leg spewing profanity before collapsing on the ground. I look down and see his actual ankle. Like the bone. Blood is going everywhere. Dude was riding tandem on the forklift. A giant safety no-no. When the driver took a hard turn and sent the kid off the side, running over his foot. The driver screeched to a halt, thought he stopped on the kid's foot. He didn't, so he popped the forklift in reverse and ran over the foot again. Anyway, I learned that day that I keep my cool in emergency situations. Grabbed and elevated the kid's foot, instructed someone to call 911, always tell a specific person to call 911, never say someone call 911. And another person to get towels to try and stop the bleeding. I held his foot up until the EMs came. They managed to save the kid's foot, but he had a battle ahead of him. His foot went necrotic and he went septic. I think that's the right term, at one point, but he survived. I don't work there anymore. There were a lot of unsafe practices going on, and the owners didn't treat their employees very well. I left about 8 years ago and got surprised they shut down about a year and a half later. Number 16. A woman on train pooped, a hard ball which just dropped out of her gown, which she proceeded to pick up, smell, then throw out of the window. She then started talking to a man, which soon turned to them fondling one another. Soon after, police showed up, dropped them at the next station where railway police force took them, because they were clearly unstable, so possibly to the nearest asylum. Number 15. I don't know if Giant Eagle is a grocery store you can find across all of the U.S., but I was doing some grocery shopping on my lunch break, and a guy came to the store with a gun, apparently intending to kill one of the cashiers. Later found out it was the guy's ex-GF, and then himself, but he ended up shooting himself in the head. I just happened to be 2 checkout lanes away from him when it happened. Number 14. I was the designated driver for a group of friends going to an Allman Brothers concert. A pregnant woman in front of me was dressed in just cut-off overalls, no shirt, bra, panties, or shoes. The overalls were unbuttoned at the sides to accommodate her belly, so pretty much everything was showing. She was chugging Jack Daniels and dancing half in the aisle. At about the third-hour mark of whipping post, she leaned to the side and puked on the people dancing in the aisle, and then grabbed her boyfriend by his hair and planted a big sloppy kiss on his mouth. Being sober when everyone else is drunk and high can make you lose faith in humanity. Number 13. I was working in an accounting office doing data entry as a part-time job in college, sitting at my desk. Somehow, I'd scored a desk by the window, but with my back to it, of course. I'm busy doing my work, and I hear someone yell, "Oh no!" and then, "Stop!" at the top of her lungs and banging on the big glass window. I turned around and looked out the window just in time to see a woman's head get run over by the rear wheels of a Coke delivery truck that was backing up. So much blood and bits of brain. It sort of exploded and went everywhere, including the glass right in front of me. Apparently, she was some sort of architectural historian or something taking pictures of our building. She stepped back and fell off the curb just as the truck was backing up to make his delivery for our vending machines. I will never forget that. Edit. I found an article on it. I may not be remembering all the details correctly, as it was over 20 years ago, but that's my memory anyway. Number 12. A fentanyl overdose was a younger woman, couldn't have been older than 23 or 24. Thankfully, I and someone else nearby both called 911, and the paramedics showed up in time to resuscitate her. She lunged at one of the paramedics after regaining consciousness, then ran off. Her cousin witnessed the whole thing, and it was pretty obvious it f***ed him up pretty bad. Ended up buying the poor guy breakfast, and the whole time he was more or less in shock, saying how she was like a little sister to him. This wasn't the person he knew. She'd never do something like this. Number 11. I was working in an office building in a city basement level. So there's windows high up. The windows were in a little alcove a couple feet below sidewalk level. So we are working away, and all of a sudden a woman in a sundress hops down into the alcove. She lifted up her dress, popped a squat with her ass facing the window, and slowly unleashed a huge as we all sat there stunned. I'm not joking when I tell you we had a perfect front row view to her giant log. We watched her butthole flex as she squeezed it out with apparent superhuman strength. Number 10. I went to Seoul with a few friends one year, and we ended up in a kind of expat bar. A friend of a friend who taught English there showed up with this super drunk American girl. American girl was being really obnoxious and aggressively flirting with this Korean guy at the bar. At one point my friend nudges me and points, and the guy is very obviously fingering her right in the booth in front of everyone, and she's moaning like she's in a porno. It was actually really loud in the bar, so not everyone noticed it at first. But then, as we all slowly did, it became really awkward as we didn't know whether to get up and leave them at the table or not. We kind of wondered if she was too drunk to realize she was in public and being so loud. The guy was also drunk AF and was just staring down her shirt lol. Sometimes when I'm drunk, I do embarrassing things, but I can't say I can top that. Number 9. I work at a data center. There are hundreds of thousands of server racks with fan walls on the back. Inside some of the older racks, there isn't a guard on the fan wall, only on the outside. I was working with a guy replacing a power distribution board, and this guy let his intrusive thoughts win. Out of nowhere, he takes his glove off and just shoves his finger into a fan spinning at full capacity. It chopped off the tip of his finger and blood went everywhere. When I asked him why he did that, he said that sometimes the darkness just wins. I hope he's doing good. That's very, very scary. Number 8. Was in a casino in Vegas and was dragging my ass back to the room at about 5 a.m. As I rounded the corner coming off the elevator, a naked woman was running down the hallway and yelled at me to hold the elevator. I held the door and watched her bouncing down the hallway. She ran into the elevator and I asked her if she was all right. She said she was fine. It was at this time that I noticed she was holding some dude's wallet and a set of car keys and nothing else. Had apparently left her clothes in the room of the guy she was robbing. The door closed, and where she went I had no clue. Vegas. Number 7. Was waiting for my roommate to come pick me up, and he said 10 minutes away, and next thing I knew it was 30 minutes later and still no show, which was not abnormal for him. An hour goes by and I text him, and he sends back just it's like, which was his way of saying saw message very busy. 20 more minutes and he shows up, still blushing. He caught a couple doing play. Middle of the day behind some dumpsters in an alleyway. When he said 10 minutes, he turned the corner and there was a traffic accident, so he turned up the alley. He drove past them, and because he has excellent hearing, he heard with his music on her pleading, "Please don't kill me, I'll pretend it's okay," or whatever she said. So he drove past acting like he didn't see them. I went back and checked the location. That would be like pretending you didn't see a T-Rex on the White House lawn. He then found parking, snuck up on them, and disarmed the guy, telling the woman to run. She tried to tackle my roommate, and then the slow, lengthy process of trying to convince my roommate, not the brightest of bulbs at the best of times, of what was going on. Eventually, he left with her memorizing his phone number, and he took a picture of the guy's driver's license. Roommate talked about it for like a month straight. I forgot about it till we were at a bar like 4 years later, and he was like, "That's the girl." Number 6. I was working the customer service desk at a sporting goods store. One of my job duties was clearing any gun that people brought into the store, usually to get it sighted in by our techs or to see if our gun counter would buy it from them. Some dude comes in with a massive .338 lapel rifle. Imagine the little brother of the Barrett 50 cal you see in movies and games. It's at least a $5,000, $6,000 gun. Well, apparently the dude who owns it is all money and no sense, because he walks in and immediately starts violating the most basic of gun safety rules. His fingers just casually hanging out in the trigger guard as he comes in, and he's sweeping the entire store with the muzzle as he walks. I put on my best customer service face and asked him to put the gun down so I could ask him the routine questions before I could clear the gun. While putting it down, he once again flags me with the barrel while his fingers on the trigger. I keep my cool and get to my questions. If he answers no to all of them, then I'm good to clear the gun. There are a few of them, but the one that matters here is there any ammunition in the chamber or magazine of the firearm? He says no to everything, so I put the barrel into the clearing trap and rack the bolt back. Lo and behold, a live round pops out and reveals the full magazine. The safety was off, which means this guy was flagging a store of people, and me, with a gun that was one slip of the finger away from making a very large hole in myself and probably at least one other person. Number 5. I was in a train compartment sitting by a window. It was broad daylight. There were 2 young students, a boy and a girl. Suddenly the girl opened the guy's fly and started to jack him off. I did not know how to react, as nothing like that happened to me before. Also, they blocked my way to the corridor. They did not even close the curtains, so the conductor girl passing by saw them too, and apparently did not know how to react as well. Then they got off on the very next stop. I think they did not have a ticket. Number 4. Driving Uber, I caught a dude jerking off in my car. Turned around and he had his deed in one hand and his phone in the other hand recording it. It kind of stunned me at how bold he was. I kicked him out and still charged him for the entire ride. This was one of the reasons I bought a dual-facing dashcam. Number 3. Ran into a burning house as a teenager. It was an old couple just a few houses down from mine. Got through the living room, into the dining area, but smoke started getting bad. Got down on my knees and crawled to the hallway to look into the bedrooms. The couple were dead in bed, burning. I know this by the shape of the lumps, not because they were recognizable. I learned 2 things. First, don't ever run into a burning house. It's dumb. I got lucky. Second, the smell of burning humans is something you never forget. Number 2. Here's one of the funnier ones. I was doing a health and safety/security patrol at a multi-gay music festival, doing a walk around in a field used as a parking area. All looked well, so I stopped to have a breather when this naked guy pops out of some tall perimeter grass. He was very high, completely sunburned, and a ginger at that, and sporting a really huge boner. I mean big, like a horse, and he asked me if I've got any water with me. So I walk over and find his equally high, sunburned, and totally nude female companion laying in the dirt, and she starts giggling her face off while thanking me for saving them. I had a supply pack with me, so I gave them each a bottle of water and tried to convince them to get out of the sun and seek shelter. But as soon as they downed the water, they started f***ing right on the ground, right in front of me. So I proceeded to pull out my spray sunblock and explained loud and slow to them that I was going to spray them down, which I did while they continued their boinking. I finished up, left another bottle of water by them, and then walked a bit away to give them some privacy while I radioed the situation and location into the festival paramedics. I will never forget how big that boner was, and I hope it was spared peeling from that terrible sunburn. Ouch. Number 1. I watched a man fall when his rappelling gear failed. He fell about 100 feet, and the sound his body made when he hit will haunt me forever. He broke his spine, pelvis, both legs, one arm, and an orbital bone, but he survived. There were a lot of people around to get first aid, and I helped carry him out of the canyon to the ambulance, and I swear I thought he was dead already. He looked like thawed hamburger meat. The Rangers, park police, not sure what they were, took our info, and a few days later, to our surprise, the guy was alive and wanted to see the people who carried him out. He gave us all some really nice leather backpacks from the company he worked for. I still have it some 20+ years later. Edit/update. The guy was in the hospital for many weeks, but after a very long rehab, he made a nearly full recovery. That was mostly due to him being in really good physical shape before the accident. And that's all the 20 best stories. If you like more of this video, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. If you have a similar experience with it, can share your story in the comment below. I'll see you in the next video.